Hello, friends, and welcome to this podcast. I'm talking about music. I've been talking about records, music on this thing, and I'm trying to define what it is that I like about music in general, which is impossible. Why does everybody like music? Why do people listen to music? What's the point of music? Why is there music? Those are pretty profound questions to me. And I'm sure it seems like a simple answer to some people. It's great. It's groovy. It's cool. It's fun. It's super. It's whatever. I love music. But why do you like music? That's a weird question. And why do we like the music we like? And why do we dislike music that other people like? Why don't we all like the same exact music? Interesting. But anyway, I like what I like, you like what you like, and I'm going to talk about something that I really like today, something that I think has gotten not anywhere near the amount of attention that it deserves. A band that people may have heard of. You may have heard a song by this band done by another band in a movie because some of the songs have turned up in other places, cover versions and things like that. But this band started off as one of those sort of dance pop bands, 80s kind of synth pop bands. It's people kind of put them in the same category as maybe something like Flock of Seagulls or something like that. And unfortunately, Flock of Seagulls is kind of fun. They're kind of cool for what they do. Their songs aren't terrible. They were fun, but they're not like what I would call serious music. I mean, I don't go back and listen to a Flock of Seagulls very often. Um, but when I hear it, I don't hate it. You know what I mean? It's just kind of there. It represents a certain part of the 80s. But there was another aspect of the 80s that had music like that had a little bit more. You were hearing a little bit more into the music. Depeche Mode was like that a bit. When they that's a band that grew. They started off really good. Their first album is great, but then they got better and better and better. Their music got more and more sophisticated, more and more important, I think. And Depeche Mode became so beloved. They have their fans. I'm a fan. I love them, and their songs are sort of like dance pop-ish kind of songs, but there's something more to them. And this band I'm going to talk about right now was in that category, I think, when they started. Their first album was very poppy, like dance kind of pop. You'd hear it in the clubs, and there was a video for it, and the guys looked all cool with their haircuts and everything. But the song was actually good. The band is called Talk Talk, and the song was called Talk Talk. And that was sort of a hit for them in a way, but then something happened with this band. They put out another album and it wasn't quite the happy, uplifting, upbeat dance pop, synth pop songs album that people were expecting. There was a little bit of an edge to it. It kind of started getting a little bit darker, a little bit more sophisticated, sort of like Depeche Mode got in later years. But Talk Talk did it pretty quickly, and they evolved into something that was, bigger than what they had been, something that was more important. And people who liked them were thinking that, they were like, wow, these guys have something else going on here besides the upbeat, synthy poppy stuff. They're doing something here that's beyond that. So then they had a third and a fourth and whatever, however many albums they had. They got better and better, but the strange thing is they got very unlike what they had been. They went into this realm of like minimalist jazz. That's about the best way I can describe it. It's this sort of minimalist jazz, not progressive rock and not even rock, but there's drums, there's guitars, there's keyboards, there's a singer singing lyrics, but it's so sparse and minimal, and the stylings of the playing kind of evoke feelings of jazz. Their last two albums, I think, are among the albums that I love the most. These are like such beloved albums to me. I listen to them fairly often. There's one, the next to the last, the penultimate is called Spirit of Eden. And this has got 6 songs on it. And they're all just these kind of meditations. You know, you go, but they're still quite listenable. They're not like minimal to the point where you're not enjoying it. You know, it's not like a task to listen to this album. The songs are beautiful. Mark Hollis is the singer. His voice is very unusual, very striking, and very emotional. It's almost like a whisper sometimes. And the tone of his voice, there's something about the tonality of his voice that sounds almost like another instrument in the mix. He's got a voice that's almost like the tone of it is almost like a horn in some ways, like the way he'll do these phrasings where he'll just do these sounds and he'll pronounce a word with emphasis on a certain part of the word that makes it sound like a sound as opposed to the word, if that makes any sense. It's brilliant. This album is so brilliant, so beautiful, beautifully produced. If you listen to it on a good stereo, listen to it on headphones, the stereo separation is incredible. The instrumentation is beautifully recorded. There's pianos on here that are just sometimes just a note or two, and great, just great songwriting. Beautiful lyrics, evocative lyrics of places and feelings and emotions, and sort of a dreamlike sense. But then after this album, they got even more minimal. They went even more into this kind of almost stripped down to the barest essentials of still being able to call it music. This is an album called Laughing Stock, which I think might be one of my favorite albums of all time. It's a record that I remember my friends and I just being obsessed with. My musicians that I know already know about this album. I have got some musician friends who have said, you know what, when that album came out, I decided, I think I almost gave up. I'm like, I can't do that. There's no point for me to even try to be a musician anymore. You know, it was like one of those kind of albums that made people, that was so fantastic that people, I think, were like, where did that come from? Where does such a thing come from? How does that work? You know, how could you take something so minimal and so jazz-like, in a way it's a jazz-like, but jazz tends to have an upbeat and a beat and all that kind of stuff. But this has got that stripped down, very elemental sound to it. You're listening to a piano and a guitar, and I think there's some distorted harmonica in there. It's got 6 songs. It has a incredible list of incredible musicians that played on this album. I don't know if you can see that. It's very, very light, but this is incredible music. The songwriting, Mark Hollis is singing his vocal, the use of his voice like a musical instrument. It's just incredible. This album, I think you need to listen to. It's one of those that you need to listen to it. Don't just listen to it once and go, there wasn't enough there. It wasn't enough to grab onto. I couldn't find anything to hold onto. I didn't recognize anything. Listen to it a couple of times until you get the feeling of this thing. It's phenomenal. It's a really incredible album. I've pushed this album onto so many musician friends who then call me back and they're like, "Oh my God, this album is incredible. I can't stop listening to it." And, so it has that effect. It's a really good one. And also Mark Hollis did a solo album around this time that's similar to. It's his songwriting, it's his style, it's his voice. It's similar in style to these, kind of minimalist. And sadly, we lost Mark Hollis not too long ago. such a loss. He had sort of dropped out of the music industry and stopped making records, stopped making music, and wanted to focus his. I believe in an interview he said he did it because he wanted to focus on his family, which is commendable. But we, people that love these albums certainly wish that he had continued making music. But that was his choice, and what we have from him is amazing. I highly recommend Talk Talk. Even their first album, even their first sort of synth pop album is good. It's for what it is. It's a good version of that, and it's fun and listenable. The song that you may have heard as a cover is a song called "It's My Life." You may not realize it, but it was a Talk Talk song, and that's been in some movies. I think it might have been in some ads or something. But there's been some really sort of soft, cool redos of "It's My Life," because "It's My Life" is from when they were still a little bit into their sort of pop, synth pop sound. So it's got more of a upbeat drums and bass and cool sounding guitars and things like that. But I recommend taking the trip with Talk Talk. If you want to start at their beginning and listen to their power, their synth pop songs, their dance pop type songs, and then listen to the progress they make as you go through each record, and you end up at Laughing Stock, which is just a mind bender. It's an incredible album, and I'm going to stop right there. I could just go on and on with the praise for that album, but I'm going to stop. It's a good one. I recommend it, and hope you enjoyed this. And thanks for joining me. Thanks for making it this far into it. Take care, everybody.